The entire boardroom fell silent when the chairman stood up, looked at the exhausted single father who had been driving the CEO's car for 3 months, and calmly announced that the company no longer belonged to the woman sitting at the head of the table. Every eye turned toward the quiet driver in the back of the room as the chairman revealed the truth that would change every life inside that building forever. The man everyone had ignored, underestimated, and mistaken for an ordinary chauffeur was, in fact, the majority owner of the corporation. The CEO felt the ground disappear beneath her feet, because the humble employee she had barely noticed now held the future of her career in his hands. If you believe kindness is never weakness, forgiveness is stronger than revenge, and every person deserves a second chance, please like this video, leave a comment, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community where hope always finds a way. Every great company carries stories that never appear in annual reports. Investors see profits. Customers see products. Employees see offices and meetings. But hidden beneath polished glass walls are moments that define the hearts of people far more than the numbers on any financial statement. This was one of those stories. At 38 years old, Garrett Nolan had learned how quickly life could steal everything a man loved. 5 years earlier he had been a respected financial strategist, a devoted husband, and the father of a cheerful little girl named Claire. His world collapsed when his wife, Evelyn, lost her battle with a sudden illness. Grief did not arrive alone. Medical bills consumed their savings. Garrett resigned from his executive position to care for Claire, and the ambitious career he had spent 15 years building disappeared almost overnight. What nobody outside his closest friends knew was that before leaving corporate life, Garrett had quietly invested every bonus he earned into one company that very few people believed in. That company slowly grew into one of the country's largest technology firms. Instead of selling his shares as their value climbed, Garrett kept every single one. Years later, after several mergers and acquisitions, those forgotten investments made him the largest private shareholder without ever seeking publicity or a seat on the board. He never wanted power. He only wanted peace. When Claire turned 9, Garrett decided it was finally time to return to work. He searched for positions that would allow him to spend afternoons with his daughter instead of chasing promotions. His resume was intentionally modest. He removed prestigious titles, expensive degrees, and executive accomplishments because he feared employers would consider him overqualified. At the headquarters of Ashford Dynamics, newly appointed CEO Meredith Caldwell was fighting battles of her own. Brilliant, disciplined, and relentlessly ambitious, Meredith had inherited leadership after the founder retired unexpectedly. She faced skeptical board members, declining employee morale, and investors demanding immediate results. Every decision felt like a test. When Garrett applied for a driver position, Meredith barely glanced at his file. She simply noticed his spotless driving record, calm personality, and willingness to work flexible hours. She hired him the same day. To Meredith, he was just another employee. To Garrett, it was the beginning of a quiet new chapter. Every morning Garrett arrived early. He inspected the company vehicle, greeted security guards by name, and always carried extra bottled water because he remembered how exhausting long meetings could be for executives. He never complained. He never sought attention. Whenever Meredith finished stressful meetings, Garrett simply opened the car door with quiet professionalism. Sometimes she vented about impossible deadlines or difficult investors during long drives across the city. Garrett listened without interrupting. When she asked for advice, he answered with thoughtful observations that surprised her. He never spoke like a chauffeur. He spoke like someone who understood business from the inside. Meredith assumed he simply read a lot. One afternoon she mentioned that a major supplier was threatening to terminate an important contract. Garrett quietly suggested that companies rarely abandon profitable partnerships unless they had already lost trust. Instead of negotiating harder, he recommended rebuilding credibility first. She followed his advice. The supplier renewed the agreement. Another time Garrett casually mentioned that reducing employee turnover would save more money than cutting salaries. Meredith reluctantly reviewed the numbers. He was right again. Little by little she began asking his opinion before difficult meetings. She still knew almost nothing about him. One bright Saturday afternoon, Ashford Dynamics organized a family charity event at a local community park. Employees brought children, spouses, and relatives. Meredith attended because the board expected visibility. Garrett arrived holding Claire's hand. Claire immediately noticed another little girl crying after dropping her ice cream. Without hesitation, Claire handed over her own cone and smiled as if giving away happiness cost nothing. Meredith watched the moment from across the lawn. She had spent years studying leadership books. A 9-year-old child had just demonstrated it perfectly. Later that afternoon, Meredith learned Claire volunteered every weekend at a children's reading program with her father. Something about Garrett's quiet life challenged everything Meredith believed success looked like. Weeks passed, the company's financial pressure increased. Several board members secretly pushed for Meredith's replacement. Rumors spread through every department. Employees feared layoffs. Meredith worked longer hours. Garrett simply continued showing up each morning with patience that never seemed to run out. One afternoon, after a disappointing investor presentation, Meredith broke down emotionally in the back seat of the company car. She wasn't crying over money, she feared letting thousands of employees lose their jobs. Garrett quietly reminded her that leaders are remembered less for perfect decisions than for how they treat people during imperfect moments. Those words stayed with her. She began walking through departments instead of remaining isolated in executive offices. She learned employees' names. She listened instead of lecturing. Productivity slowly improved, trust slowly returned. Then came the quarterly board meeting. That would change everything. The conference room overflowed with directors, investors, attorneys, and senior executives. Garrett waited outside as usual. Unexpectedly, the chairman asked him to enter. Confused whispers filled the room. Meredith looked equally puzzled. The chairman smiled warmly before opening a thick folder that he explained that years earlier, during the company's earliest fundraising rounds, an anonymous investor had purchased an enormous percentage of shares and had quietly refused every invitation to join management. After recent voting adjustments, that investor officially controlled the majority of the company. The chairman slowly turned toward Garrett. The room froze. Several directors stared in disbelief. Meredith could barely breathe. Garrett remained standing quietly, almost embarrassed by the attention. The chairman revealed that Garrett Nolan owned 53% of Ashford Dynamics. Every conversation stopped. Some board members who had ignored Garrett for months suddenly stood respectfully. Others lowered their eyes, remembering how casually they had dismissed him in hallways. Meredith felt overwhelmed. She remembered every rushed greeting, every overlooked thank you, every assumption. She expected Garrett to remove her immediately. No one would have questioned him. Instead, Garrett slowly thanked the chairman before explaining that he had hidden his identity because he wanted to understand the company through the eyes of ordinary employees rather than executives. Driving the CEO had shown him every strength and every weakness inside the organization. He had witnessed hard-working security guards, exhausted receptionists, dedicated engineers, and managers trying their best under enormous pressure. Most importantly, he had watched Meredith change. He admitted that during her first week she focused almost entirely on numbers and reputation, but over time she had learned something far more valuable. She had started caring about people. That transformation mattered more than quarterly profits. The room remained silent. Garrett announced that he had no interest in becoming CEO. He believed Meredith deserved the opportunity to finish what she had begun. However, he proposed one important condition: executive bonuses would be reduced temporarily. The savings would protect every employee from layoffs, training programs would expand, mental health support would become available for families, scholarships would be created for employees' children. The board hesitated. Garrett calmly reminded them that as majority owner, he could approve the proposal. One by one, every hand rose in agreement. Meredith struggled to hold back tears. After the meeting ended, she walked through the lobby where Garrett was preparing to leave for the day. For the first time since becoming CEO, she thanked him not as an employee, not as an investor, but simply as a remarkable human being whose quiet integrity had changed her understanding of leadership forever. Garrett smiled with the same humility he had carried since his first day behind the wheel. He explained that wealth had never healed his broken heart after losing Evelyn. Only raising Claire with kindness had done that. Money could build companies, character built families. Months later, Ashford Dynamics became known not only for financial success but also for becoming one of the best workplaces in the country. Employee satisfaction reached record highs. Turnover dropped dramatically. Customers trusted a company that genuinely valued people, and profits followed naturally. Claire continued volunteering every weekend, reminding everyone that compassion is learned by watching adults live it. not by listening to speeches about it. Meredith often said that the greatest lesson of her career came from the man who once quietly waited outside meeting rooms holding a set of car keys. She no longer judged people by job titles, clothing, or appearances, she judged them by the kindness they offered when no one was watching. Before this story comes to an end, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is more important in a leader: power, humility, or compassion? Leave a meaningful comment below and share your thoughts with our community. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey, because sometimes the greatest person in the room is the one nobody notices until the truth finally steps into the light, proving that real leadership is never announced by a title, but revealed through quiet acts of kindness, unwavering integrity, and the courage to lift others higher even when you hold all the power.